Hey.
Hey,
Okay, I didn't even realize you guys were on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey guys, thank you for joining Booktini today. We are doing our first impression of our October book. Our October book this year is The Push by Ashley Audrain. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. And this is our mystery suspense horror month. So we are reading a psychological thriller this month. And Ashley was a huge proponent of this book. So she is going to be leading our discussion of our first impression today, where we're talking about our impression of the first 50 pages. So I'll give it to Ashley.
hey, y'all. Okay, so my first question is, what did you guys think of the first section, especially her watching the family, the girl who appears to be her daughter? What were your first thoughts about that?
So I feel like it sets the mood for like psychological thriller, the like where someone's creepily sitting outside in a car watching a family on Christmas, like, and you're slowly realizing that like there's a connection here. Initially, I was like, my first thought was like, is she a mistress? Like, what am I kind of seeing here? And then you're kind of start to realize that this is probably her ex and that's her daughter. And so I just feel like it sets that kind of like mood where you're like, what is happening? Where are we going? so I liked it. I felt like it was a good start it pulled me in.
For me, I thought it was very creepy, not just because, okay, there's this woman whose name we don't know. She is describing a scene where she's looking through somebody's front window on Christmas Eve, and it's like the kids are excited about Santa. There's a tree. They're listening to music, drinking hot drinks and stuff like that. But then the daughter notices her through the window and stares at her. And then also brings her younger brother to come stare at her too. And so to me, I'm like, okay, clearly this woman, this used to be her family. It's no longer her family. So something bad happened. But also this daughter is up to something. That's what, that's where I went. Because how can you even see who's in the car? Because I can't remember if it was the mother or the father came to the door or the window and looked and they weren't noticing this person sitting in the car, but the daughter did. Like why and how and what is going on. So that was my impression.
I thought, and especially once because I had the question of, is this also her son, or is just the daughter hers? I wasn't sure at first. And so the way it's described that the daughter is like kissing his cheek and like rubbing his shoulders repeatedly while staring at the mother, I assume, I was like, okay, well, is this her displaying like what she would want? Is this like, like, or telling her I'm caring for him? Like, what is happening here? What is this relationship? Or is this just creepily, repeatedly kissing this child and staring out of the window and no one else realizes what's happening?
I agree with all of that. I thought what was the most weird for me was that she made eye contact with this lady and was like very purposeful about it. Like,
yes,
she seems to definitely know something nobody else seems to know, because like you said, the dad came by and he wasn't like, oh my god, get away, there's our crazy stalker. I mean, she's like and the little girl's just steady just looking, and I'm like, well, this little girl's up to no good. I know some girls.
exactly.
There's a line where she's like, I look away because she always wins like at staring, and then I look up and she's still staring, and I was like, no.
Right, because you ain't finna beat me in no staring contest, little girl. Something is going on. Sorry. Something else.
And so then from that scene, we go into the book, and she says, this is my side of the story. How do you guys feel about the structure of it so far? Because we seem to have like flash to the present, we have flashbacks, and then we have like super flashbacks to like her mother and her grandmother's life. Like, there's a whole lot of timelines going on. Is it like too many timelines for you guys, or do you like the timelines?
I feel like I like it, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder. This makes me think of what you talked about, Nikki, a little bit earlier, so please feel free to jump in. Is that quote beginning about being in the womb of
I
your.
have it here. You want me to read it?
Yes, yes, please.
So the book starts off with a quote from someone else's book. I believe it's a book. It's called "When the Drummers Were Women" by Lane Redmond. And it says, part of it says, before we were conceived, we existed in part as an egg in our mother's ovary. All the eggs a woman will ever carry form in her ovaries while she is a 4-month-old fetus in the womb of her mother. This means our cellular life as an egg begins in the womb of our grandmother. Each of us spent 5 months in our grandmother's womb, and she is in turn formed within the womb of her grandmother. We vibrate to the rhythms of our mother's blood before she herself is born. And that had me like, whoa. But go ahead with your point.
Yeah, no, that just made me, I just thought about it when you asked that question of like that relationship of we're hearing about like her relationship with her daughter to her mother to her grandmother and kind of how they've all existed at some point within each other. So I think when you think about it in that way of like the cyclical kind of insidious nature between them, then I think that's kind of like interesting to hear about all of them. It can get a little bit confusing. The dates are helpful. You have to learn the names a little bit to know like who we're chatting about. But it's interesting because I feel like at this point I'm learning more about how terrible the adult is to the child. And so when we have that preface of the first portion of like, this kid is weird, I want to know kind of like, how is this kid weird? Because thus far, all I'm seeing is like terrible adults being terrible to children.
I feel like with the multiple timelines, it was confusing. Someone else in the comments said they were confused as well. And I'm one of those people that don't pay attention to years and dates in books, especially if they're the heading of a chapter. I just like, okay, that was from way back in the day. And I just keep reading, you know. But this one, I was like, wait a minute, I got to pay attention, and I have to pay attention to the names because we have a lot of different things going on now with 3 different timelines, basically. I do like though how it's structured because now the quote makes sense because at first I was like, okay, what? I didn't expect to hear about like your ovaries and grandmothers and blah blah blah, but then you have one of the first chapters is talking about the grandmother and then the great grandmother. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting, and it definitely has me wanting to figure out what happened in each timeline because it's crazy. Everything that each timeline is crazy basically, and I want to know why. So even though it's confusing, it has me hooked.
Yeah, I definitely felt the same way, and I felt the same way about learning all the names. There's lots of names for men and women. I mean, I felt like I almost needed to like pull out a sticky note because I was like, okay, she was married to him, and then he died, and then it's a lot.
Yeah,
yeah, and I feel like it does help that at least my reading of it, our main kind of narrator, her story, I guess, feels to me like a little bit ambiguous time-wise. Like there are a lot of parts of it that feel closer to like a 50s housewife kind of vibe in terms of like my husband's doing well and he's making the money and I stay home and everyone just wants me to have a baby and a night nurse and all of these things. But then there's also mention of like email. And so I'm like, so I know that it's more current, but I think that the way it's written, it's a little bit ambiguous. So then when you have these 2 other further back timelines, it's harder to like delineate like what time is happening.
I agree. What did you guys think about the character of the Ellingtons? That's the neighbor family that she meets up with, and they are Black, which I think is a bit subtle. It comes out because she likes going to dinner with them. They seem like a pretty middle-class family, which is very different than her family, 2-parent household. And she brings home the notebook with the story and the drawings, and she's the only white person in the drawing. And her mother finds it and gets so upset about it. So I guess, what did you guys think of the Ellingtons, and specifically the mom, Mrs. Ellington?
I have a comment about it, but it is not really specifically for this book. It's for every book where I think this is, I don't know if I should even say it, but I had this comment about where the crawdads sing.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know why in books written by white authors, why black people are always saving somebody who's like a other white character, and the family is like amazing, and the mom just goes out of her way and sacrifices for this little child. And I'm just like, and not saying we don't do stuff like that, but why is it that we always are the ones who are, the saving grace, the shining light for some person that's being mistreated by their family or by the community or something? It's very weird to me. Like, when did you guys decide to make this a thing in every white book? But outside of that, I loved the family. The mom seemed great.
They
I
had
mean, I'm like,
they had to
it was
come
lit.
the blind side type of story. It's like black people also save people. But yeah, no, I mean, they're great. Like, I think like, comparatively, like,
Yeah.
there's nothing that I don't like about them. Like, I too would like to be invited to dinner at their house.
Me too. Right.
I agreed. I like them. I do agree with that, Nikki, that there are so many just like good black people in stories that are helping save white people. And it is an interesting trope because I don't know, it's not quite like the diversity that I think we're looking for
Mhm.
in books. And I don't like, I guess, when it doesn't seem to add anything to it because so far they haven't, like their blackness hasn't really done any work, if that makes sense. I mean, they could have been any family. I mean, any kind of family that
Yeah.
clearly rotten family, that's clearly this like uncared for little girl. Any family, would have invited her in and been like, you can have dinner with us and, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and then I also wanted to talk about the night nurse situation. So
Yes, please. Let's.
I guess first, like, up even to her getting pregnant, like she has a lot of misgivings about even being a mom. I mean, she's very like, I don't know about this, and her husband is like, no, you'll be great, and she's still like, I don't know about this. Like, even when she's about to give birth, she's like, I don't know. Like, are you sure? Like, for real? And so, just even setting that up just felt like such a big part of the story, I guess, because she's so not into it.
Hesitant. Very hesitant.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the husband just like keeps encouraging her, and that does feel very dangerous. That just, I don't know, it makes me think of what's that lady's name, Andrea Yates. Like, I don't know, 15 years ago she drowned all of her kids, and she had like she had like 6 kids under like, I don't know, 10, and they just kept having more kids, and the husband was like, but we want to have more kids, and here she is like very mentally unstable. And that just gave me the vibe.
Hmm.
When a woman says she does not know about kids, the answer is not like 2 thumbs up. You look really cute with our kids. It'll be great. Like, literally, no. I can like kids from a distance. That does not mean I know about having my own kids.
I think part of the difficulty is that she romanticized a lot, where like there is simultaneously her like expressing misgivings, but then her also acknowledging that she wasn't truthful about, she was like, I didn't tell everything about my upbringing because he didn't want to know. And I felt like it would, make things harder for us to be together. And so she was like, she just didn't tell him the truth about a lot of things, about like her actual feelings. And so I feel like it's a lot easier to kind of like steamroll someone when they're not being completely forthcoming about all of their misgivings about the situation. And I mean, she's young. I think she was either 25 when they get married, and
26, I think.
they were together, went through college, and she's like, I just want to be with him all the time. I think he's great. And then also you have the secondary thing happening of he's the breadwinner. She doesn't have a job. She's never made any money from her store. I think she published like once. So not enough to live on. And so there's also that happening where like, that's what's expected. Like if you're living, like I think a lot of people don't anticipate just being a housewife and not also at some point probably being a mom.
I also don't think, like, nobody really knows how they're going to be as a mom until they are one, right? So she could say all day, I don't know, well, you think I'm going to, like, she never really said, I don't think I'm going to be a good mom. She was just like, oh, you think I will be? You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you really know until they're here? And then I understand her having that hesitation because clearly her mama was not a good parent, so she doesn't have a good example. And a lot of people, when they are fearful that they will repeat what their parents did, they are like, I don't know, should I do this? Should I not? It's a 50-50 chance. She might be a great mom. You know what I mean? She might be like, I don't ever want to do what my mom did, so I'm going to do great. But it seems like she didn't really know for sure, and you really can't know until you have a child, which kind of sucks, which very much sucks for the child and the parent.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Sucks for both parties, you know. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then it seemed like her husband had a really good upbringing. So I can see somebody with, you know, rainbows and stars in their eyes, like, no, this will be fine. It'll be easy. It seemed like his family was just perfect. So he's not even thinking about there could be some kind of issue of abuse eventually with my wife. Like, nobody's really thinking like that when they can't even fathom it. You know what I mean?
And I'm under the impression that she never told him about her family's history, like at all. I don't think he knows like really anything. Something about how her dad said he was going to miss them for Thanksgiving maybe, but that like she never talks about her mom, obviously never talks about her grandma. I mean, I don't think he has any clue. The woman
she knows that her mom left, and that it seems like that was it.
Yeah, which I also think is her fault. Because you gotta let people know when you got crazy in the, you know.
But I can understand somebody, like, I'm not condoning her not sharing that because that's her husband. Like, you need to share stuff like that. But I also understand someone being very hesitant when you have something that can be considered negative in your history. You know what I mean? Especially your parent. Like, that can be very difficult to share with somebody you want to build a life with who might be like, oh, you know, I don't want to marry you anymore.
Especially when that's not like when their experience is rainbow drops, it's really hard to say that's not at all my experience. I connect to that not at all. And even more so if that's what you want. Like if you're like, I want to be around those people, I want to interact with that, and I could lose it if I tell you more about what I've experienced. And then that also feels like, why should I personally be punished about something that I have no control over, but that you may look at me differently about?
Yeah. Tough spot to be in, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's tough. And so she has trouble just like bonding with her baby. From jump, she's like very nervous about the baby. You know, she talks about like their time in the hospital is their only time alone. And she talks about how like her husband is so good with the baby and she's with the baby all day and she just can't do it. And so her in-laws pay for a night nurse, as if for like the first month of the baby's life or so. And she's just not bonding with this baby. I mean, she clearly has like feelings about this baby. But the night nurse, she asked the night nurse about like, what does the nurse think? And the nurse says, sometimes she opens her eyes so wide and looks right at me, like she let her words trail off and then shook her head and sucked through her teeth. So I thought that was interesting because, I mean, like the mom's perspective is the mom's perspective. I mean, she's sleep deprived, she's a new mom, she's stressed, whatever. But this night nurse is like, I don't know, something about this one right here.
Right, like she's seen babies in her time. She know a thing about birth, and I don't know about this one.
Who was that? Aziza said, I want to know what that night nurse wanted to say, and I also wanted to know what she wanted to say. And I'm like, why did they tell us what she wanted to say?
Yeah, I want to know what she was going to say. Whatever she was about to say, I believed her.
Because she was the only one, it seems, that kind of felt what the mom felt. Or then she did say she ran into a mother out in a coffee shop who was looking at her baby like, not like she was in love, but more like, here's a baby. I guess I got to do what I got to do with it. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And so she felt a connection to that mom, but then they weren't able to really, for real, connect and become friends or anything like that. So she could have somebody to, I guess, vent to. It seems like all the other new moms are like, this is the best thing ever, and motherhood is the best, and it's all worth it no matter what your baby's putting you through, kind of thing. And she really wants another perspective. And this night nurse was almost there. And then,
so close.
But I felt like the mother, Blythe, ruined it when she said, she framed the question like, the baby is so, I can't remember how she said it, but she basically was like, this is a sweet baby. And then she was like, isn't it sweet or something like that? And it sounded like the night nurse was like, maybe I shouldn't say what I want to say to the mom because people are very protective of their kids. You know what I mean? So that's what I got from that. That Blythe messed it up a little bit and we couldn't hear what the night nurse wanted to say.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Christia?
No, I was going to say that I think that that was an interesting portion, like her interaction with these other moms and then this other mom who is experiencing some of those same kind of feelings. I think, you know, from the outside looking in, I think that like motherhood is one of those things where you're so expected to be like, it's great, it's perfect. You're like, and if you say anything otherwise, you're ungrateful. And so I think she's experiencing that interaction where she just wants someone else to admit that it's hard, that like maybe there's some of the same things she is. Maybe there's also sleep deprived and all of these things. But I think there is a culture of saying like, no, I can handle it. This is great. I love it. And I think that's difficult. Particularly when I think if she had like a close friend who also had a baby, then I think you can be a lot more like real, or she had siblings or anything like that. But I think because
or a mom.
Yeah, but I think because of how she met these women, like I think when you're like, we were all in a mommy class together, I think that makes it hard because it's not as if you became friends before this. It's like friends because you're moms. And if you don't say that you love being a mom, then you're going to kind of get a little bit of a side eye.
Well, it's been 20 minutes. That's all I have. Is there anything else?
Okay. So what do you guys think so far? I mean, we know that Ashley has read the book. So no spoilers, please. But based off of what you've read so far, what do you think? And you can still, you know, give your opinion, Ashley, if you want to. What do you think so far about the book?
I really enjoyed it. It was such a mystery for so long. Like, I was sad to stop reading at 50 pages because I wanted to keep reading. I think I read it last year or the year before last, so I don't remember every little detail. But I stopped because I was like, I'm going to get to like 51 and something's going to happen and I'm going to be sitting here, you know, giving spoilers. I do really like the style that it's written in, like, multiple timelines. I like the back and forth, so I loved it.
Christia?
Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like, so I was reading it last night and I also got to 50 and was like, no, but what happens?
Yeah.
So what is happening? Because I feel like the premise that you're understanding is that, like, you know, it's very much the bad seed vibes where you're like, there's something not right, or is there something not right? And it's, you know, the trauma that this woman has experienced already that's influencing this. So you don't quite know. And so I think that portion of it, I'm like, I need more concrete examples of this kid being weird. Like, I need to see more about like what happened for these other people and how they kind of like escaped. And you're not necessarily like looking forward to more trauma, but looking forward to more like explanations of kind of like what happened and where these people end up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, I'm just like you guys, I want to know what is going on for everybody. Not just the current story, but I believe the grandmother was Etta, and the great grandmother was Etta, the mother was Cecilia. The grandmother was Cecilia, and the mother is Blythe. And the daughter is Violet. I do believe the fact that isn't somebody else's name Violet, like the great great
His,
grandmother?
I thought his grand Blythe's husband.
Oh, it's on his side. Okay, never mind. I don't know why I was trying to connect something like, uh-oh. Okay, maybe not. But I am definitely looking forward to seeing why everybody is treating their daughters so terribly and seeing if the daughters are really terrible. It should be treated that way because I'm sorry, but the way that little girl was looking through that window, something is up. Something is up. I actually feel like it's a combination of a lot of factors. I'm just putting it out there. That leads to the mothers having to leave and being stressed out about these children, being evil. Maybe they're not evil, or maybe they are. I don't know. But yeah. All right. Any other thoughts about the push?
No.
No. Okay. So, what'd you say?
I'm excited to reread it and meet with the newest chapter of Booktini, hopefully.
Yeah, so we have a Greenville chapter starting in South Carolina. So their first official meeting will be in October. Yay. And then our next first impression will be for our November book, which is Passing by Nella Larson. And this will actually be our final first impression ever. So please make sure you join us in November. I cannot remember the date, but it is early November. And you'll receive a notification about it on our Instagram if you want to join us. Other than that, thank you for joining us on this Monday. Thank you, Christy and Ashley, for joining me on the first impression. And we'll see you next month.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.